It is about noon, and I've had a very lazy start to the day. I took some pictures at sunrise, but it was with my digital kit. It's just really tough setting up a view camera in the dark. But it's the same composition I shot on the first day here, so it'll be interesting to see how they compare. But now I'm just sitting alongside the road, had breakfast, had lunch, read a book for a while, listened to the radio, and there are some high clouds up in the sky, and it could very well make for a pretty good sunset. So I'm just sitting on a location here to see how things develop, because there's two areas I'm thinking about going between, depending on the conditions, but we'll see what happens. Well, it was a little after 2 p.m. and I have arrived at my shooting location for the evening. So I found this area where there's some water back here, and then there's some mountains off in the distance, and some clouds there. And my initial thought was that this would be a safe bet for an evening photo, because there are some clouds out this way too, but these clouds, I'm a little worried that they're going to dissipate as the sun starts to set. And so I figure a down valley shot might be my safer bet. Kind of like what I was talking about a few days ago when I was shooting an up valley shot. But that range of mountains over there has its own cloud generation, and I think with the distance it has a kind of a cool look to it. You combine that with the reflection of the mountains in the water there. So I set up my camera. I have my 450mm lens, which is a moderately long lens, and just framed a pretty simple composition of it. And even though I was planning to shoot this in the evening, I'm a little worried about the wind, but also it looks pretty good right now. So I think I'm going to go ahead and try for a sheet of Velvia 50 on this scene, and at least get my safety shot out of the way, and then seeing about how the conditions are as we get closer to evening to get a golden light with perhaps some clouds lighting up sort of shot on it. But let's start with the safety shot. All right, so that was 2 sheets of Velvia 50, and I came over here waiting for sunset and hoping that these clouds are going to light up, but I think they're dissipating a little bit. So I saw this view over here with the mountains, and then there's some pools of water that reflect the mountains a little bit, and some bands of clouds, and it had a kind of cool look to it. So figured I'd expose some film, and Velvia 50 has some contrast to it, so even though those mountains are quite a ways away and there's a bit of atmospheric haze, I think the film might make it look kind of cool. So, a little bit of an experimental shot, but I'm going to leave the camera set up, and I'm going to hope to shoot the same composition as we get closer to sunset, because at that point I'll use some Provia and maybe get some last light on those mountains, reflections, clouds lighting up, or maybe the clouds will go away and block the sun and there'll be no light. But either way, glad to get a couple sheets done. So it has been a little while, and I've exposed a total of 3 sheets of film so far. I did 2 sheets of Velvia when I first got here earlier this afternoon, and I just exposed a sheet of Provia. And the sun has come out right now, so if you look back behind me, you'll see that the sun is going through that gap between the clouds and the mountain. And just a few moments ago, it was still behind the clouds there. And when that was the case, the foreground was in shade and the mountains were in sun. So it's a bit like the time of day when the sun drops back behind the mountains and then the foreground goes in shadow. So what I did is I used a 2-stop soft grad filter. You can still see it on the camera there, because 2 stops is enough to balance between the foreground and shade and then background and sun. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wait for the sun to drop back behind the mountains. Hopefully we get a nice little glow going, we'll see. But one thing I did bring with me, it's down in my case here, I did bring an umbrella, because that way I can use that to help block the wind a little bit. Because when I have a long lens on there, even a gentle breeze is gonna shake the camera. We got probably about 20 minutes until the sun is going to drop back behind the mountains, and we'll see what happens. One of the things that happens quite frequently here in Death Valley is that you can have these topography-driven clouds where the wind going over the mountains helps generate all these clouds, but as soon as the sun sets, the cloud generation switch just gets shut off and they just start to dissipate. And that's what's happening right now. It's pretty much what I figured was going to happen. And there were some wonderful clouds in my composition, but they've now drifted off to the left and they really weakened a bit. So now in the composition I had, there really isn't much of anything in terms of clouds. But I think my best opportunity was earlier when the mountains were still in sun. And then you had the foreground in shade and some nice clouds in the composition. And what was nice about that is that my shutter speeds were really fast. They were in the half-second range, which is blazing fast for an 8x10 camera. And so we'll see how that all works out. It's all guesswork in terms of placing the grad filter, so hopefully I did pretty decent, but I could have messed that up. We'll see on that. But I think I'll enjoy the rest of the show here and then get the camera packed up, head back to camp, get some dinner. Really looking forward to that. And then we'll see what's in store for tomorrow. But this is an absolutely beautiful day here in Death Valley. There were several windows of light that evening, and thankfully my exposure times are fast. Even the slightest gust of wind will shake my camera during a long exposure. This first photo is taken mid-afternoon on Fuji Velvia 50. The exposure is excellent, although the light isn't as dynamic as I would like. This second photo is taken closer to sunset on Provia 100F. The exposure is a bit bright, though overall quite accurate for the conditions that evening. My final photo is taken shortly after the foreground dropped into shadow. I use a 2-stop soft grad filter to help balance the exposure, and I love the warm low-angle light on the distant mountains. This is my final photo from my March visit to Death Valley. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you around next time. If you enjoy this ad-free and clickbait-free content and want to help me live my dream, a voluntary contribution of just $24 a year helps keep my gas tank full and my film freezer stocked. For more information on how to support me and my work, please visit the donation section of my website at benhorn.com/donate. I also have prints in my portfolio box set available on my website. You can find a direct link down below in the show notes. Thanks in advance for your support.